Thank you very much. Thanks for all the organizers for Scrum Alliance for putting this together. I probably be spending about 70 odd minutes today in walking you guys through a simulation activity. Now, before I go, I probably should share my screen and just double check if the technology is working okay. How's everyone doing today? Good, yeah. Good thumbs up.
Yeah.
All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Do you see the title screen, Crossing the Edge, a group coaching simulation?
Yeah, awesome. We can.
Okay. So, so today's activity is a simulation. It's a workshop. So I would talk through some of the details at the start, but then we would be diving into an actual workshop, an actual simulation activity. Before I get started, thanks to the sponsors of the event, who have, because of which this event has been made possible. Of course, needless to say, thanks to Scrum Alliance and all the amazing hosts and all the organizers, the advisory team who have done all the effort and all the hard yards and, the late hours that they've done to put this event together. Thanks to them, wouldn't have been possible without them. There are a fair few of them on this call right now. So thanks everyone, you know who you are, you're amazing. And next on, just a brief introduction about myself. So my name is Nafees. I'm joining you today from Sydney. And I work for a consultancy called Elaborate. And what we do is we go to the clients and, we help them solve whatever problem that they have in their approach of adopting new ways of working. Sometimes it's working as a Scrum Master with a team. Sometimes it's working in an org design in a large FMCG, for example, and anywhere between these two extremes as well. So I've been doing this for a fair few years now. Have worked at different government departments, financial institutes, hospitality industry, and right now I'm working at a financial institute as well. So if you want to reach out, here are my LinkedIn and Twitter details. I'm happy to, after the session, connect and, answer a question or two if you have any. Now, for the session today, when you looked at the description on Swapcard, this is what you signed up for. So what we said was, and I'm going to read this out here with you, groups and teams that work together are often thrown off by introduction of a change in the system. An example of that could be that a CFO reduces the discretionary budget that each department's head of gets every year. And that kind of throws the equilibrium off a little bit. And there are certain ground conditions that need to exist before the group gets into the new equilibrium, before it crosses the edge and gets stable again. What we would be trying to imitate today is think of a scenario, we will make one up, where an organization is going through a change, and by the introduction of that change throws the balance off of that group, and how as a coach we will go about bringing that equilibrium back to the group. That's what this activity is about. If you thought you're here for a different session, then that's a quick, check. This is what we are going to do today. In terms of questions and answers, if you have any question, just either raise your hand or write it in the comments, and I'm happy to question as we go. Yeah. Is everybody still with me? I see a few heads nodding, a few thumbs up. Okay, cool. Now, to give you a bit of a background of where this activity that I'm going to present today is coming from, I have borrowed this, or actually took this from organizational and relationship system coaching body of knowledge. Organizational relationship system body knowledge is a body of knowledge that builds on top of many existing body of knowledge like system thinking, change theory, coactive coaching, adult psychological development, system therapy, family system therapy, quantum physics, to name just a few. And what it does is that it brings all of these bodies knowledge together and adds a few more things on top of that, and then gives it a flavor which allows you to be able to coach the groups. Now here, I would like to emphasize here is that not only we are talking about coaching here, but we are coaching the groups as opposed to individual. In our industry, a lot of time we are comfortable with or are aware of what it means to coach individuals one-on-one. But when we look at group coaching, we look at, let's say group has 6 people, we look at 6 one-on-one individual coaching as opposed to coaching the group as a whole. And there is a slight nuance to it that I will explain in a second as well. To explain this in a bit more detail, I think it makes sense to look at the 4 cornerstones of the relationship model. And the 4 cornerstones of the relationship model are that when you are coaching a group, the relationship of the group is the focus of your coaching. So if I'm coaching a board of directors, there are 6 people in that board. I'm not coaching those individuals one-on-one, but what I am coaching is the relationship, the unseen, the intangible that exists between those 6 people. Another cornerstone is that the relationship system is naturally intelligent and creative. What it means is that you as an external coach don't have to heal the system. You are not there to fix the system. The people and the relationship that exists between them is intelligent enough, is self-healing, that if you show it what's happening within the relationship, it will heal itself, and it would steer it in the direction, whatever direction makes sense for the relationship at that point in time. So as a coach, your responsibility is to let the self-healing, the naturally intelligent and creative side of it sparkle and do the work for the relationship. The third cornerstone of the relationship system model is that we never work with the individuals in a group coaching activity. We are always working with the whole relationship system. If there are 5 people in the relationship, we are always working with 5 people. If we are working with, let's say, 2 friends who have a relationship, we always work with both of them together. So that's another cornerstone of the relationship coaching. The fourth cornerstone is oh, I have that duplicated, right? That's an interesting one. And the fourth one is that we try to reveal the system to itself. And as I was saying earlier, a minute ago, because the system is naturally intelligent and creative, all what you have to do as a coach is just hold a mirror, as you would with an individual coaching, hold the mirror to the entire group and the relationship that exists, and reveal the system to itself, so that system starts to heal together. And the last one here, which is not necessarily a relationship cornerstone, but is an important thing to keep in mind all the time, is that in a relationship system, everyone is right, but only partially. It's a very important aspect to remember, because everybody has truth. Everybody is coming from a point of view where they think what they're saying is right, or what the point of view they're keeping is correct. But it's only a partial truth. It's never a complete truth. I'll pause here for a second and give people an opportunity to ask any question if they may have.
There's no questions in the chat at the moment. Okay, we've got one here through from Sahendra. Isn't the dynamics of the relationship of the group made up of individual dynamics? So how do you coach the group without coaching the individuals?
So you listen to the individuals, but what an individual is saying is not saying because he or she exists in a silo. Whatever their opinion they are sharing, whatever you're observing, is a voice of the system. So what you do is you hear the individuals, but you coach the entire system. Your objective in a group coaching, in a relationship coaching, is to coach the system and that entity that is an unseen, intangible entity that exists between the 2 people. There is another question here. How important is thinking about consensus in group coaching? We don't need to worry about consensus, because what's going to happen is that people are not going to be on the same page almost all the time. And whatever emerges reveal the itself, and whichever path it takes, we believe the system is naturally intelligent and creative. Whatever path it takes, if the path it takes is of conflict, we need to hold and out any solution on them, and whatever happens is the right thing that can happen for the group. Was the coaching, or, you know? Okay. I'll just take this from last question from Jim, and then we'll move on to the next slide. When starting an engagement, the relationship starts with one person. When then switching to the group coaching modality, influences individual have on the direction or goal setting? That's a very interesting question, because what happens is most of the times it's a triangular contract that you would initially contract with somebody else to go in, but the actual group that you're coaching is different. What happens is that you need to make sure the clearly at the start. If you are coaching a group and your initial contract is not with them, what is in it for the sponsor who has brought you in? That is a bigger system as well, and that you need to coach them as well. Now, there are multiple layers of coaching that would come here, which separate you with and talk that. Jason, we okay to go? There are a few more questions. If you could just note those questions down, and then we can answer the questions afterwards. Is that okay, Jason?
Yep. We're just getting a bit of Nafees, we're just getting a bit of line breakup. People may be suggesting going off of video to help with the bandwidth.
Sure. Let me just do that. Okay. All right, let's get going. Now, one particular practice, one practical tool and activity that I'm going to demonstrate today is what is called, is based on edge theory. And what edge theory is best visualized using a triangle. So what happens is when a change is about to happen, what you find yourself is on the left-hand side of the triangle, which is denoted as the primary. And when you think of the primary, think of this is where you find comfort. This is where you are comfortable. This is how you identify yourself. This is who you are. This is what is known to you. And if you look at the right-hand side of the triangle, this is what is denoted as secondary. And this is what you usually do not attribute with yourself. This is how you don't identify yourself. This is where you are a bit uncomfortable. And the process of change is going from where you are to and what you are comfortable with to the new secondary, which you are not aware of or you are not comfortable with. And a change process is a process of going up the triangle and crossing the edge. And this is used as a metaphor in the edge theory. And what happens is whenever a change is introduced in a system, people are on the primary side of the triangle, and then all the people involved in the system start to move towards the right hand, towards the secondary. And then in process of doing that, they have to cross the edge. And when individuals try to cross the edge, first of all, not all individuals cross the edge. And then secondly, some cross the edge at different speed. And then while crossing the edge, they exhibit different behavior, they have different concerns. What this activity that I'm going to demonstrate today is about is using a workshop activity with the group involved that are going through a change, and then use this, the space, the physical space, to help them move from the primary to the secondary. Any questions on primary and secondary before I move to the next slide? So turning off the video has helped. Yeah, thank you. Sounds like miniature version of Johari window. I'm not aware of Johari window, but that's
I can attest as an ORS certified coach that there are pieces of the Johari window, but it is not the Johari window.
Okay, thanks, Samantha. Cool. Any other questions? All right, looks like we're moving to the next one. Now, for the sake of this activity that we are going to start in a few minutes, what I would like to do is I would seek out a few volunteers, and for those volunteers, I am in this activity. We would expect a few working agreements. So the first one is that I would like the people who are volunteering to participate in the activity to be curious and not have some preconceived notions about what the solution might look like. And because this would involve 6 to 8 people in the activity, I would like all of them to be mindful and respect everybody else's opinion, and make sure that everybody has the forum and everybody is heard, and we make sure that if there are different voices, different opinions in the system, we hear all of them, and not just let one person kind of dictate the proceedings. Is that okay? Is that okay? Does that sound like an okay set of working agreements for the participants who are going to volunteer? I'll revisit this once we have selected the volunteers as well. Okay, I see a few thumbs up. Okay, now this, for the sake of this activity, usually as a coach, when you would run this activity, you would have a group of people that you would run it with. So the group of people could be, as I mentioned, a team that you're working with, a board of directors, or the heads of in a particular line of business. For the sake of this activity, I'm making a scenario up, and the scenario that I'm making up is that I, as a coach, am hired by an insurance company to help them implement a new change. And the change is that historically, the insurance company has the development and the operations department working independently of each other. But what the CEO has announced that they are going to adopt something called DevOps. And instead of running the development and operations as 2 different departments, what the CEO wants is that the both departments needs to work together and then create cross-functional teams to reduce the handoffs that conventionally exist between the 2 departments. And the CEO is expecting that it would increase the throughput. The CEO also feels that this is the future for the technology, and he does not want to stay behind the market. He wants to be one of those markets that have implemented DevOps and are reaping the benefits. He also believes that it will not only good for the company, but it will also have a positive impact on the teams, on the people involved in both the departments. However, his leadership team, his staff that reports directly to him, are mixed about, they have a mixed feeling about the change. Some are pro change and some are not so much pro change. So that's the scenario. That's the fictitious example that we would run with for the simulation. Now, for the sake of that, what we would do is we would have a few roles that would exist in this activity. So now you don't need to remember a lot about these roles, except a few things. So Daniel is the CEO, and he is well respected because of where he has brought the company from where it was 3 years ago. And he's the one who has announced the change, and he's the leader of the organization and the leader of the group that we are going to be working with. Linda, who's the head of operations, she has recently joined the company, and she's amazed at how 1990s the organization is in its technology adoption. She's all for change, and though she's not the one who is announced the change herself, but she's very enthusiastic. She's looking forward to it. On the flip side, we have the head of development, and Miriam has been in the insurance company for about 12 years, and being there for a long time, she believes that the way things are running are perfectly fine, and there isn't necessarily any need for change. So there are two other roles that we have here, which is the head of HR and head of finance. The head of HR is Rob. He doesn't mind change per se, but he's conscious of the consequences of what a reorg might mean. He's lived through a couple of reorgs in the last 7 years that he's been in the insurance company, and he's just a bit skeptical. He's not sure. His concern is what impact a reorg would have on the organization as head of HR. The head of finance has been in the organization for less than 6 months, and Lee is all ears for any improvement. He's not necessarily pro change, but he's not necessarily pro merging the development and operations department, but he's pro anything that would improve the organization, the bottom line, or anything to do with the financial situations of the organization. And we have 3 more roles. These are heads of other departments that exist in the organization. And it doesn't matter what department they are heads of are. What is important is that they are pretty neutral. They have a pretty neutral stance about the change, and they can be swayed in any direction based on whatever happens in the group activity. Okay, so I see people have joined here already. So that's where the simulation, the role play really starts, right? And once you run the activity as a coach here, what you would be doing is you would remind people of the working agreement, and then you would make sure that when people start, they understand why they are there for. And in the group coaching activity, to make sure that they are not holding to any preconceived notions. They are curious about whichever path may the whole discussion might take us, and be respectful of each other's opinion, and make sure that all voices of the system are heard. Now, the volunteers to be actively participate in this activity, in the rest of the activity, and the rest of the crew who's attending today would watch and observe on how the whole dynamic works, and I would be playing the role of the coach. Now, let me jump to the workshop area, and can everybody see the screen that I'm looking at right now, which has a big triangle on the right-hand side? And yep. If I could just bring everyone to me, that would make all of you look at where I'm looking at. Yeah? Yep. Is everybody on the mirror looking at the big triangle? Yep. Yep. So if you were in a room together physically, we would have this drawn on the floor somewhere, and then we would use the physical space to run this activity. Because we are all connected virtually from all different cities and countries, what would happen is that we would be using the Miro board as an imitation to imitate the physical space. So it is the exact same thing that I described a few minutes ago. So right now, we are the people who are participating in the activity, and there is an icon for each one of us. So what I would like you to do is drag the icon, and I would expect each person to drag only their own icon only, and drag it towards the left-hand side of the triangle. And I'm asking you to drag it to the left-hand side of the triangle, because that's where we start with when the change is just announced and we haven't started the whole process yet. So we are all in the primary. We were working fine. The department, the development department is working separately. The operations department is working separately. The organization is going fine. Everything is great. and all of us are on the primary side. Now I've seen this.
Nafees, it's Joe. Operations. I'm on an iPad and I can't seem to get my screen to be sensitive to drag it.
Okay. If you click on the arrow on the left, it then allow you to drag it, because otherwise in a different view mode it doesn't let you. Do you want to try that, Joe?
Yeah, my arrow is blue. Hang on. Oh yeah, maybe.
See if you can drag it.
Maybe someone else can drag it for me and I'll just see if I can work this out on the iPad. Thanks.
Okay, I've dragged it towards the primary end of the triangle.
Yeah, okay. I've just worked out. I'm watching you on Zoom, not the application. Sorry. Just having a tech moment with my brain.
It's all right. So I, as a coach, am standing in a neutral place as a neutral and have a neutral stance. And now what's going to happen is that I have the 4 cornerstones on the left for a quick referral, and the working agreement here on the left hand side as well, and the scenario also on the left hand side. So just a quick reminder: the change is introduced by the CEO Daniel. The head of operations has recently joined, and so you're going to play the roles that you have. Now what's going to happen is that I would let the CEO take the floor and describe the change for the rest of the group. Now just be in the role, and think of you being the CEO, and talk through what do you want us from this change. So Daniel, can you give us a quick brief of the change?
Hi, sure. Hello, everyone. So thank you for coming in today. So our focus for this meeting will be basically talking about the change that we're about to adopt, which is DevOps. Okay, so instead of running separately our development or operations that we have been doing for the past couple of years, let's ensure that they're going to be cross-functional towards in terms of delivery. So lesser hands-ups, and increase the throughput. So I feel this is really what we need to do to be able to really compete in the market, to really help our client. So that's what we are going to be talking today.
Okay. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, CEO. So what we'd like to do is hear some of the other people, what they think about this change. So who wants to share their opinion?
Hi, it's Nick here, the head of development. I've got some concerns about this model. There's a reason why we have an operations team that runs, and we have a development team that develops. We have people who have particular specialties in terms of what they do. And really, there's nothing wrong with how we're operating today. I mean, in the last quarter, we put out, several releases with lots of functionality for our customers, and there were 0 problems. So are we creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist?
Thank you, Nick. What other opinions do we have in the system? What other things that we would like to share?
Yes, Dan. Hi, it's Darren here. I'm head of finance, as you know, mate. Yeah, that's quite some big news that you've announced, and I guess in the back of my mind, I've always thought this might come across as a bit of a change. Obviously, with any transformation, we need to keep up to speed with the way things we roll, with the way things that we deliver. Sure, with our competitors as are up there as well delivering. From a finance point of view, as you know, I deal and operate, manage my whole team, orchestrate all the budgets across the organisation. Now that we're combining development operations as a single team, what concerns, if any, is that going to bring to the team? For me, how are we going to run that? We're going to have a single consolidated budget, how the manager's going to be able to understand what their operating funds, their margins are now going to look like. So, yeah, a little bit skeptical how this is going to play out.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, it's Joe. I'm really encouraged by the discussion that's happening because I think it's a really important one. As you might have noticed, I've had some tech issues this morning, but I think I've got on track with this video, etc., into this meeting. So for me, this is the way forward. And Daniel, I am speaking up in support of this. I've thought that DevOps is the way to go for some time, and I'm pleased we're moving towards it. So well done.
Cool.
Hi, this is Rob. I'm head of HR. Daniel, I think it's a good initiative, and from a HR perspective, I don't mind the change, but look, I'm a little bit wary because this company has gone through a number of reorgs in the recent past. So there's quite a bit of this is a big change, and there's quite a bit of impact to our teams and individuals. While I support the change, I think we really need to look at the benefits and the impacts to the people side as well.
Cool. Thank you. Now, what I would like us to do is, we haven't necessarily heard from everybody, and we probably would give opportunity to the other people as well to make sure every voice of the system, every distinct voice of the system is heard. What I would like you to do is, as people share their thoughts and their opinions, start to move your icon across the edge over to the secondary. And just a very brief reiterating what primary and secondary is. So we are all starting from primary, and the primary is because all of us are in a state of equilibrium the way we have worked before. Now, this introduction, this news of merging the dev and ops together is going to throw us off balance, and people would start to move across the edge, and some would move across the edge all the way to the other extreme into the secondary. Some would stay in the primary, some would zigzag back and forth between the across the edge. So what I want you to do is, as somebody provides an argument or says something or raises their concern, if listening to that makes you change your mind or makes you feel that you like the change or you are feeling comfortable with that change, move your icon across the edge as and when it happens, so that we can live view how the system as a whole is behaving as well. So we haven't heard from the people from the other departments, and my previous interactions with you have told me that you are pretty open to influence. So what I would like to hear is from the other departments, what are your concerns about this change? Anybody?
I can go. Oh,
go ahead.
Go
ahead.
Okay, I am from Department 3. Actually, we are the business strategy department. And I'm actually a pro change for this because usually when we come up with a business strategy, we have to go and deal with the development department and the operation department separately. And there is a loss of knowledge in between sometimes. But if both the departments are merging, that means even if there is a restructure coming in place and there will be a huge change for the people, but I think business can benefit from this. So we are supporting this change, Daniel.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So hi.
Smiling when you were saying that, Soma. So thank you for saying that.
All right. So hi, this is Aina from Department 1. So I'm not sure. Okay. So Daniel, I'm also pro for this change, but I'm still uncertain for this one since we still have a lot of risks. I can see a lot of risk for this change. So I guess if we were able to plan out this, how to mitigate these risks, then I'm all good for this one.
And Aina, when you were just talking about the risk, I could see the CEO nodding, as if he is confirming that he is aware of some of the risks. CEO, would you like to say something?
Yes, actually, aside from those factors that mentioned by the other people as well, is really something that we need to look at. It's not something that we're just gonna disregard and just gonna push with the change. So we really need to see all the angles that we can for us to be able to be prepared in this transition.
Okay.
I'm Sam from Department 2, which, as you all know, is the call center department. We are obviously one of the leading insurance firms in our city, and we get, as you know, in excess of 500 calls per day. When we've had reorgs in the past, our calls have gone up, increased, because clients are asking us what's going on. So I'm a little bit concerned that it's going to put extra load, any kind of change on us. And if we are having one department or the two departments, operations and development, merging, what's that going to mean for the greater business?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask, right, Sam? Yeah, and I see a few more people nodding their heads and kind of saying, yeah, this is a concern. So what could we do about it?
Well, certainly my department's going to need a message to be ready with when clients phone up.
Daniel, another question I have is, what's the timings on this? So what are we looking at? Obviously the news today comes as quite a big surprise and to all of us, and we'll need to cascade this change and this news down to our relevant teams. But just so we're aware, like what sort of timings are we looking like for this change to come into effect?
That's a great question, Darren. In terms of the timeline, it's something that we can come up with. Let's see those factors that you mentioned earlier, in terms of the costs, the changes that's going to be affecting our teams. We can work in terms of communication or comms plans across, in terms of a one blanket message across the organization and how we're going to execute it. So the clear message is the opportunity that we need to for us to be able to be competitive in the market. At the same time, it's not going to be an overnight change. We're going to identify areas where we can focus first and work together in terms of that. So it's not going to be a drastic change that we're going to feel right away in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so the key part is really the execution and how we're going to send that out to the teams, especially to the managers down to their line.
And just playing back what I'm observing here is just the message that Daniel is delivering, the CEO is delivering here, has made a few people either just cross the edge or go from an extreme left to, closer to the edge. So I guess that is, the messaging has kind of helped the system move towards the secondary a little bit. So that's an observation that I just wanted to share with you, said that this is when the CEO said, hey, we don't know yet. So he kind of showed a bit of vulnerability, and he showed that, we would do the co-creation of what it is going to look like for us. That has resulted in a shift a little bit on the side. Okay. So if we were to look at the biggest concern, other than the timeline, what would be those concerns?
It's Linda, Head of Operations, also known as Joe. I've just joined the company in recent months, and one of the reasons you might recall, because a couple of you were on my interview panel, one of the reasons I was selected was my experience with DevOps in my previous company, where we took our previous company from a traditional company to a DevOps running company, customer-centric, delivering value in the shortest time possible. In that, we also not only raised the results from our customer experience polls, but we also raised our employee engagement. So our people, and that's what this change is about, people and how we work is key. So we need to think about that as we go. But as a team, from what I've seen, our talent is there. With you, working with Daniel, and with me, and all of us together as one team, we can help our team move into this DevOps space. So I'm for this change because I've seen in previous organisations the value it brings. So I'm seeking your support on this and happy to work with you on it.
Good call out, Joe, because what I've seen, what we are witnessing is that some of the people are moving, are crossing the edge by what we are sharing. And I could also see a lot of people nodding when you were speaking. So yeah, we seems to be a lot of agreement with what you're saying. Yeah. So if this change was to stick, what are some of the key things that need to be there?
So
it's Nick here, the head of development. So I think there needs to be a lot of, because of this changes, behavioral, we need to have a lot of training for individuals. so that they actually know, in this new model, what are the expectations that they need to have that are different than they are today. I think that's very important. Yep.
Okay, and how do we wanna do that?
Yep. So it's Lee here. Sorry, catching up with my predator. Head of finance here. So there's been some great conversations. So I was going to raise that good topic around training. So as Joe mentioned, Linda mentioned, investing in our staff, absolutely paramount. We want that top of mind for everyone. We certainly don't want to lose any capability within the teams, because that does bring change. Change brings instability. It brings nervousness, and it's a bit of a roller coaster ride for everyone. So in doing that, there are some funds aside that we can help invest. Part of that training budget, we can dip into that. We can get people skilled up. We can get them a good collaboration of T-shaped skills. So certainly this is something that I'll work with all of you on, around how we can get some training incorporated, whether we need to bring in third-party vendors, whether we can do some in-house training. We'll explore all options. We'll look at what the most viable options are with that. So certainly that's going to be some key questions no doubt our staff are going to raise. So if you do get any of that in your team meetings post this one, certainly do let them know that there is certainly money aside that we can help team upskill, maintain current skills, get them on training, whatever it might take, because I think we're all moving in the right direction here with this change.
I mean, I guess that the real issue here is that this is insurance. It's very different than other business areas. It's very complex. I'm not sure it's going to work here necessarily. Yeah, so that's my main concern.
Sorry, I just work in the call center. I don't actually know what the benefit of DevOps is, so I'm sort of a little bit skeptical. I don't want to change for the sake of change, just to try something new. I've heard it. I've seen the word sort of thrown around a little bit.
And it might work you're right, Sammy, absolutely. And it might be something that might work in a small startup or a small group, but I'm still not convinced that it's necessarily going to work here, especially with the big complex things that we have here.
Yep, I also agree with Nicholas, especially if both development and operations follow different kinds of framework in Agile. So if we're going to merge those two departments, then there might be some clash that might happen. So I kind of worry on that part. But if what promise was from the operations and from the finance, if they have our full support, then I'm also good with that.
Do you think?
I think there's. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just thinking that with all the uncertainties, because most of the people don't know how this will work or if this is applicable to our business, do you think it would be a good idea to get someone who knows more about this, like a DevOps coach or something, and can help us explore the situation first before going into the change, like on a big scale? Mm-hmm. So just experiment on, like on a small scale and find out if this is working, and then maybe we can apply it to the whole department. Do you think it's a good idea?
Hi, this is Rob from HR. I'm supportive of that. I think as much as I'm supportive of this change that is being proposed, we've been two reorgs in the last 7 years. So we want to make sure that we get those consultants who can help us through and clearly define what this change is going to be, what the benefits are. And also for me, from a HR perspective, it's key that we clearly define what the new roles are going to be and how the existing roles are going to change. And we need to take a consultative approach with our teams, because we've got a good talent in this company, and the last thing we want to do is not consult people and lose some of this talent. So it's really important. I'm supportive of the change, but I think we need to get that external help to get us through this change.
So I see some heads nodding when you were saying this, and Soma when you were speaking as well. And another observation that I had was when the previous argument was made, some of the people who had actually crossed the edge went back on the primary side. And that's very normal. That happens in a discussion like this when the change is, the people are going through the change process. People cross the edge and then they go back. So that's pretty normal what you're experiencing right now, because the change is uncomfortable, and that happens, and that's natural. But yeah, I think the direction that we are heading is towards looking at what things need to happen. And I think you guys are getting good on to some of the things that could put into place to make sure it is a successful thing. Now, we could continue this for quite a few moments, but what I'd like to ask is, if you were to pick one thing that could move the needle the most, what would be that one thing for us to work together as a group and get behind this change? What would be that one thing for you? Who wants to go first?
Look, I think it's Nick here. I think the key thing is if we're going to try something like this, you know, and I have heard this as well. I think someone mentioned this. It might be worthwhile to isolate the change to make sure it's something that we pilot and we have a good understanding of what it looks like in our organization before we actually move forward on this. And because I don't feel comfortable about everybody changing all at once. I think that's very risky. And again, just to echo my concerns before, this is insurance. We're different. We're highly regulated. This is a very different thing than a lot of other tech companies need to deal with.
So
Yeah.
I'm aligned with Nick and Soma on the idea of starting small. You know that I came from a multi-billion-dollar bank before coming here, and we moved from traditional legacy to DevOps environment. We did it small. We started small, so we've got great alignment there. We actually looked at the talent within our organisation because there is talent. There are people working in this way, and we had a front runners group stood up. And so we tested and experimented quickly and moved forward. So I believe in the start small. I believe in work from within. We may also get in support from specialist coaches. So that's the way I'd say is a great way to go. But I'd put my hand up and say there are two people in this conversation that are at risk, and that's Nick and myself, because we're looking at DevOps. Currently, we've got development head of and operations head of. So together, Nick and I need to work together to see how that works, because both our roles could be combined into one going forward. So that's just another thing out there at this level.
Yeah, I see a few heads, and I also see some people moving back just because of this thing that you have surfaced, Joe, that, you know, there could be potentially some challenges with the roles as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to take that a step further and even suggest maybe a little pilot working group experiment over, say, 2 sprints. Run like a little agile experiment here, rather than just a big bang, get it out. I know we'll talk about start small, and excellent, fantastic. I'm all for that as well. But I'd like to actually just experiment and just run a product or a something through the funnel, through the board, and just pull in just a minimum viable team. Just get them working, understand what all the gaps are, what the risks, the issues that are going to throw up when we actually scale this across the business, and then we can actually adapt at the end, inspect, see what that brings, and then actually pick that up and kind of take it to the next level for that. But I certainly agree. We certainly need all the help, support, coaches we need on this. But I think from a starting point of view, it'd be good just to identify volunteers to get a little pilot group working between development and operations, and just see what's possible.
You know, and I think the other thing to know is that, I mean, this year our portfolio is very full because we have a lot of changes happening at the moment. And these are mandatory changes, these are regulatory changes. So even from a development point of view, it might make sense to actually hire some external vendors to actually work in that pilot team, you know, just so we can keep on track and make sure that we hit our timelines.
Yeah, I'll just explore the costs on that, but it's an option.
Cool.
Or another option could be, and I think we've got lots of options, but another option could be we could get who's interested from our people to be in that pilot group and employ external vendors, contractors to backfill them. So they're paired with our people, so we're building out the knowledge within rather than having the knowledge and the experience from without. We know.
Sorry,
you go.
No, I interrupted you, so go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're committed to growing our people and their careers, and this is one way to do it.
And I agree with you 100%, but at the same time, you know, like taking, you know, key skills and resources away from development at a time like this to try this experiment I think that's really risky. Are you willing to put your reputation online that we're not going to hit our targets this year or get those regulatory projects done just because we're trying this experiment? I don't know. I don't think I'd put my hand up for that.
Yeah, I can also relate to Nicholas, especially if we're building a small team for that. So we need to also ensure that our current deliverables won't be affected on that small initiative that we have. So we need to be really prepared on that and prepare some remediations on that one.
All right.
But we also
Now we could continue for a few more minutes. And actually, when you run this activity in real, you would probably set aside 30 minutes, 40, 45 minutes. If it's a larger group, maybe, more time. And maybe you would need to do over multiple sessions or, do some other activities in parallel. What I would like to do is stop here now and do a bit of a debrief to see how this activity went. So what I would like to ask, to get out of the role that we were playing, I have 3 questions. So my first question is from the participants, really, who were the volunteers here. What was this experience like playing the role, and what was the activity like for you?
I'll start first. For me, it's like real life, really related. I can really relate a lot of. I've gone through a lot of discussions regarding change. Different organizations I have working before in the same organization. So it's the common thing I found out about is really the factors that have been raised by the people that they know how it will affect them personally and the department they are working with. So I find it really good in terms of the flow of the work that everybody is looking towards the change, meaning looking at it, how it will impact at the same time, raising all those concerns. So it was really it's really fun actually for me.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. What I would like to do is alternate between the volunteers and the observers. So because we are running short of time, so I would like to hear from people who were not participating as volunteers, but were just observing this happening. And they were looking at the triangle, the edge, and people moving from primary to secondary and then bouncing back to primary. And then all that movement was happening. What is your experience like? Does anybody want to share?
Yeah, it's brainstorming, Nafees. Yeah, we are getting a context of it and how a coach should take the stance and support the organization and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Cool, thank you.
It is a good activity, and where we really able to find and understand like how how a coach should prepare with respect to the organization level. Scaling up with respect to the coaching and like how the role play was really superb, and like everybody played their roles properly. So this is a clear insight of like how a discussion will happen during change, because I've been a part of changes. So this is how generally the change discussions really do happen. So it's really nice. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Anybody from the observer? We probably have time for one last comment.
So not an observer, but the one question we didn't ask, and I don't know whether it should have come from us as a team or from Nafees as coach, is Nick, what would it take you to get over the to get over the peak, to get onto the change side? And we didn't explore that.
No, we didn't. And what would happen is that you would, as a coach, let people go back and forth a few times before you ask that question, because that's a question that you probably don't want to ask prematurely. Because a lot of discussion should have happened, a lot of context should have created together for you to be able to ask that question. When you run an activity like this for, like, say, 40, 45 minutes, towards the 35th minute, you would probably ask that question. Absolutely spot on. I did not ask that question, but probably we did not have enough. People would go back and forth a few times before this question would make sense. So yeah, but extremely good call out. Thank you, Joe.
And you may even see that change quite a bit, though, because with any change, it can take weeks and months for people to really understand and be on board. As you know, there's the change curve where you get all excited and then all of a sudden there's that negativity and the resistance. So I think you could find people jumping back and forth between this point, primary, secondary. It could be daily, it could be weekly, because there's so much nervousness and change going on with any kind of big announcement.
Yeah. So let me conclude this session by saying thank you to all the lovely volunteers. This is an excellent activity to try out when you are embarking on a change and people are not sure about the change. They are not about the change. So that's an excellent activity to try out in that context. Now, if you want to know more about it, we have in attendance somebody who is an OAuth certified person, or you could reach out to me. I'm happy to help and take it from there. Well played, everyone. And thank you very much, all the observers who saw us run this activity as well. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jason.